listening to Double J.
Double J, good afternoon.
We've got Sydney's newest radio station. What's happening?
A good question. Very loose, but somehow or other we'll get there.
Move on.
It's 1 minute past 2. This is Double J. Wait for the Sky is the name of the Jackson Browne album, the most recent one. And it's a pretty good rocky track from it.
Hi, this is Bob Hudson. Whatever you do, don't miss Ladies First, a 4-hour special on women singer-songwriters of the 70s. Phil Lobel and Wendy Gross will be in our studio to play and discuss the songs of Joni Mitchell, Betty Davis, Blossom Dearie, Grace Slick, Lavender Jane, Buffy St. Marie, Janice Ian, in fact everything from heavy rock to maudlin slop. So join us at 6 p.m. on Sunday where it's Ladies First on Double J.
We're not really the power guys. It's everyone sort of pitches in. We have some wonderful arguments with everyone working on the station about what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing.
Well, some mornings we start off with a fair idea of what we're going to do. We might have a few sort of people coming into the studio and a few telephone calls to make. Other mornings we start off completely from scratch and something sort of occurs.
I'm not going to get time to work it out exactly. 4 minutes past 2, this is Double J. Graham Berry with you till 4, and then the Magus. Nobody's found out who that guy is yet. I haven't even seen him. Weird.
We still reckon that our listeners are intelligent enough to be able to make up their own minds about what's what, so that if we say something and it's wrong, they're not necessarily going to believe us. If we play music that is lousy, they're not necessarily going to like it. Before they've been in that position where they haven't had much choice of music, and so they just had the best of two bad choices, maybe.
I mean, I've got nothing against commercial radio. I've got nothing against commercials as such. It's just that the concept of advertising the way it is, even with all the legislation coming in, I've been sort of listening to a bit of commercial radio and so on since all this new legislation came in about advertising, and I think all that's happened is it's served to give the agencies a time to investigate what they actually can get away with, and to me it's worse in a way. The advertising on commercial radio and television now, I think, is worse.
You've been quoted as saying you don't see yourself as a threat to a commercial station. Do you really believe that? Or is
Yeah,
it
sure.
just keeping that
And not a threat, a stimulus, you know. I mean, we're going to really liven up a whole of the dial, you know.
We've had commercials on the air. There's opportunity, especially if you have worked in commercial radio, to certainly find the funny side of them and present them here, you know.
Certainly it's not going to continue in the manner in which it's continued now, where a top rating station has 20% of the audience. That will change. We'll head much more towards the American system,
We're
where
just,
you know, the top rating station maybe will hold 10% of the audience.
That's the Temptations on Double J. 23 minutes to 2 with Holger Brockman. Sunday afternoon, I think. It didn't work. That's nice, that is. Here he is, sitting here, hasn't got a yeah, right. This is just a preview of Nude Radio from 2 o'clock on Double J. Clunk, just slip it in and hit the button.
The whole business of censorship in radio is absolutely so out of date, it's unreal. That you've got, you know, people are allowed to go and see films with R classifications and all this sort of rubbish. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely nonsensical. They treat radio listeners as absolute children. We're not allowed to play certain records at X hours in the night or whatever. I mean, it's absolutely mad. How lyrics of a song are going to offend people is quite plain. How they're going to corrupt them is absolutely beyond me. I don't know that you know, people are so silly that they'll hear a song and immediately go out and commit an immoral act.
Have the ABC's top brass indicated their feelings to you about these sort of things at the moment?
They have asked what our attitude was, whether we intended to ignore the ABC band list, but to date, to our knowledge, we have not ever played a record which has been banned by the ABC, which is entirely different to a record that's been banned by commercial radio.
But commercial radio is a gentleman's agreement. There's no law. They agree among themselves not to play certain records.
Yeah, sure. It's only a gentleman's agreement.
It's self-censorship.
And when you say gentlemen, it's mainly middle-aged gentlemen who have no understanding of what youth culture is all about. And if they knew what half the records are about that they're actually playing, they would freak out because they just don't know. They don't know. They don't understand the language, the street language, what people really talk about and what songs really mean, but they choose to ignore all the ones that are going to make plenty of money.
Well, we're trying to be as sort of community-minded as we can, but not being sort of terribly bogged down in terribly cerebral-type discussions and interviews. One day it may be light and frivolous, the next day we might get into something a little deeper.
On the subject of signal strength, you're still having problems there?
Oh, yeah,
Areas.
disastrous.
What's the answer to that?
Well, the answer to that's a new transmitter, new aerial system.
How likely is that?
Well, we're pushing for it as strongly as we can, and we hope everyone else is as well. I mean, at the moment, it's conservative to say that we don't get to 35% of our audience, signal-wise, at this
Well-known
stage.
conservative over here, he
Yeah,
always makes conservative judgment. But it's true, you know, something like 30% at least of people who could be hearing it probably aren't.
I don't know whether with our overall enthusiasm for Stevie Wonder, whether you actually heard that track many times. That's Bird of Beauty.
Is there an on-trial situation here whereby if you don't produce results in terms of the dreaded ratings and such, you don't exist? Is there anything...
No, not so much that.
Not really. In terms of ratings, I don't know. You know, when we originally were asked to set it up, we were told that ratings was the initial consideration. If we didn't rate, it wasn't considered successful. As we now have these transmitter problems, we've been pointing out, actually for the last 3 months, that we're not accepting a ratings standard until the transmitter situation is fixed and until we can physically get to the audience. We're the only national station that's broadcast from Sydney. Great in Adelaide, great in Melbourne, great in Brisbane, anywhere else except Sydney.
You're running 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You got enough people and facilities to do that? Is that...
We're all working pretty hard.
It seems like.
I find I'm driving faster than I want to, and there's not enough hours in the day for any of us, you know, because there's so much to do. We're just sort of gathering everything together.
We don't want to compromise on people we get because we have to get a person to run a shift. We'd rather toss it around amongst the people that are here and have everyone working longer hours, and everyone's agreed to that system until we can get people that we think are the best.
Someone in a newspaper article called us Radio Commune because they arrived when we were in the middle of having a program meeting where everybody who works here was just sitting around on the floor just discussing what we're going to do about various things, and that is in essence how we work, because that's a good way for everyone to feel what people working with them feels, and we transmit a lot of ideas through sessions like that. They might be a bit like group therapy on the one hand, but on the other hand they are really important in terms of just sheer communication. I mean, communication is a very difficult thing, you know, in an organisation this size. You might write a notice on a board and people don't bother to read it. You might send around leaflets, you know. Simple mouth-to-mouth, one-to-one communication is really very good.
You haven't got a playlist, and so it's pretty much up to what the people putting on the programs want to play.
Yeah.
It's very subtly formatted, actually. It's so subtle you'd never pick it if you said you can listen to the station for a whole day. It works in terms of percentages. We have what we commission each week as the top-selling album list. A percentage of each program is made up of tracks off the top-selling albums. A percentage of each program is made up of old tracks. A percentage of each program is made up of new tracks. Not in any sort of strict radio format type rotation, but they're there. The format is there.
And it's really one of the problem areas during the daytime, 9 through until maybe school's out at 3 o'clock. We were a little bit at a loss to know what to do, but so far the format, well, we don't really have a format, but the music we're playing and the people we're having into the studio seem to be pulling a fairly good reaction from listeners. We had a man from the venereal disease clinic on one day last week, and he could have been there all morning if we had time.
They won't necessarily just come to us. There's other radio stations. We hope that people will use their radios in an active sense, you know? Get around, listen to a lot more things.
What's next?
There's obviously a big break for Australian artists, isn't it?
Yeah, too right. That's exactly what our thing is. You know, we're going to change the music scene in Australia dramatically, we hope. Not overnight, but I think that sort of in a year from now, in Sydney, you will see and reflected in the sort of stuff that's being bought in record shops, the sort of reputation that groups have as, you know, music makers, will be dramatically different from today because of the coverage and exposure they'll get that they haven't got. You know, the only ones who've had exposure over the last few years have been the really successful ones and basically the money makers, the ones that go to the big audience, the ones that the boppers like. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those bands. You know, I like a lot of them myself. But there's a lot of other very good musicians who are hanging around clubs and not, you know, people really don't know about them because it's hard to get through to the number of people that you can get through to with a radio station. You know, you can be playing tremendous music in a club in Surrey Hills or Darlinghurst and not reaching more than 300 or 400 people a week. We can reach, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 in one go. And that's going to be tremendous for the musician.
Listening to 2 Double J.